I believe the Smithsonian Institute is the largest keeper of our history, the history that has been withheld from the people of this country with a deliberate intent. Generally speaking, though, the Smithsonian consists of a network of museums, education, and research centers, and they go on to boast being the largest complex of these networks in the world and totally created by the United States government. On their website, they even claim to be an opener of doors. The question is, what kind of door? Spiritually? Perhaps dimensionally? I believe so. The Smithsonian, which is the more common name used in referring to this collective network, was founded in August of 1846. And they claim, and I quote here, that it was created for the increase and diffusion of knowledge, close quote. Sounds so Babylonian, doesn't it? This institution is named after its founding donor, British scientist James Smithson. Now, why would an institution located in America name itself after a British scientist? Their story goes that he was a chemist that published many scientific papers for the Royal Society in the late 1700s. Now we're getting somewhere. He worked directly for the royals, shaping the narrative of the U.S. under loyalty to the royal crown? I don't know. Perhaps. The Smithsonian is also called the nation's attic for its alleged holdings of over 150 million items. It also has its beginnings in the Columbian Institute for the promotion of arts and sciences, and we will have to cover that in a video all on its own. Going back to Smithson for a moment, his background is quite interesting. Not only did he publish numerous scientific papers for the Royal Society, his origins are sketchy at best. He's described as being born illegitimate in France, naturalized in Britain, where his name changed from Jacques-Louis Macy to James Louis Macy, later on adopting the name Smithson. All of this complicated description of his youth, without really telling us who he is, well, questionable to me. At least until he enters the stage, so to speak, as an Oxford student who, with such a sketchy past, is able to attend such a prestigious school, unless he is placed there with the specific intent. And he's definitely worth a video all on his own. The Smithsonian Institute has many affiliates, of course, with over 200 institutions and museums and a national zoo that has an annual budget over $1 billion, with 2/3 of that appropriated by the federal government and the remaining provided by an endowment. And endowments are interesting, especially concerning these federally funded entities. Endowments really are the legal structure provided by the wealthy elite or the initial financial backers. And they do this and use this to gain and control exactly what happens at many of these locations. And organizations like the Smithsonian, then they begin to receive most of their funding federally or from taxpayers like you and I. And they not only get their initial money back, they go on to perpetually receive funding from our taxes, not only to enrich themselves, but to control precisely everything that is involved with these endowments. So this wealthy British scientist who worked for the Royal Society left his inheritance to the United States of America in order to establish the Smithsonian. And the American diplomat Richard Rush was tapped by President Andrew Jackson to collect this money and sent Rush to England to collect it. I wonder what Andrew Jackson agreed to with the British Crown upon receipt of this inheritance. It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? And President James Polk in 1846 signed the legislation that established the Smithsonian as a trust of the United States to be administered by a board of regents and a secretary of the Smithsonian. So what exactly is this board of regents? According to the Smithsonian's website, this board consists of a Chief Justice of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, 6 congressional members, along with 9 citizen members, and they meet at least 4 times a year. The 6 congressional regents are 3 senators who are appointed by the president, 3 representatives or House of Representatives that are appointed by the Speaker of the House, and the 9 public regents, 2 must reside in Washington, D.C., and the other 7 must be within the 50 states, but no 2 are from the same state. Let me show you the current list here, cited from the Smithsonian website. And just as a side note, I wonder why the Vice President is not highlighted like the others are, and is listed as an ex-office. This is just the congressional involvement in the Smithsonian. Please go to the website to take a look at the 9 public regents and their resumes, and you'll see the same pattern I do. Just by reading the details of the congressional regents, you'll figure out who their allegiance is to, or which quote-unquote side they represent. And these are the gatekeepers of our history. Their bios on the Smithsonian website are very detailed at all of the things that these people are actually involved in outside of this board, and it's very telling and it's very global. I wonder why the Smithsonian is also known as the Castle. It was designed by James Renwick, and there are so many facets to the Smithsonian that I cannot possibly cover in one video. So perhaps there is a lot of future material here. Why are they panhandling additional funds from the public when they are already receiving federal funding from the taxpayers? And just as an example of one of their campaigns for raising funds, they use the example of preserving and maintaining the ruby slippers worn by Judy Garland in 1939, the film The Wizard of Oz. I mean, are they kidding? They expect us to believe that they need billions of dollars to preserve an old pair of shoes? Well, let me just end with, we aren't in Kansas anymore, Toto, are we?